fasting. After we did the fasting thing, you're just chomping down your food. I'm like, sir, sir.
I remember that. That was funny.
It's coming up
This
again.
meeting is being recorded.
You're just chomping down your food. I'm like, sir. Okay, I guess the audio is working.
I totally remember that. That was funny. All right, switch over to that.
You're just chomping down your food. I'm like,
yep.
right.
Let me make sure that we're live on the right YouTube channel because I think. Okay, good.
We are.
All right.
We are.
Because it was still showing on my channel. I'm like, crap, did I not click the right one again? All right.
I don't think I'm subscribed to your channel, so yes, it's on the right one.
All right. Go ahead and.
Aren't I such a caring co-leader? I'm not even subscribed to yours.
Oh, blasphemy!
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, what's he have to say about us? I don't care. Oh.
Go ahead and do our intro for us if you don't mind.
Greetings and welcome to the Fellowship of Christian Gods. Welcome to our Revealing Darkness. This is part 3 of our talk on legalism. It's supposed to just be a one-part talk, but you know how things get sometimes. That seems to be standard for us these days. If something only takes one hour, it's a shocker for us. All right.
You never know.
I know. Especially since, like 1 year later, it'll say 2 people has viewed the video. And we know one is you and the other one's me, which means, whoa, no one's watching. One day, 10 years from now, one little gothling will watch our videos and be deeply touched by them. We have a fellowship of 600 people, and none of them watch it. Wow, one day.
All right, almost done with all the sharing. Where did I? Oh, there it is. Okay. But yep, like Jack was saying, today is part 3 of our discussion of legalism. We realized that there was a couple more aspects of it that we want to discuss. So
I have 3 more on my list right here of topics.
Well, technically, I could go on and on and on and on, but we're not.
That's how we're at part 3.
No, I can continue on.
I
literally wrote the book on it.
Yeah. How many chapters are in your book? Let's see. Have a video for each chapter.
Oh my gosh, that would be too much. Actually, let me grab the book anyway too, just so I can view.
So as he's grabbing it, yeah, he wrote a book on it. I've not read it. I can't say go ahead and buy it. If you want to, go ahead, but I can't give a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I don't know what he says, and I don't know if I agree with him on it. But he wrote a book called Legalism, something of the religious spirit. Go ahead, show it.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. The manifestations of the religious spirit. All right, there you go. He wrote a book. I haven't read it, haven't reviewed it. I might disagree with the whole thing. I might fully support the whole thing. I don't know. If you're interested in what he has to say on it, go ahead and buy it. It's on Amazon. If you're interested in my thoughts on legalism, I'm sharing them in this video. I write a lot about it in my blog. Just type in my name. You'll find it. You know? All right. There we go.
If I'm looking at this, because again, I'm in the process of like reorganizing and reformatting it. I think there's 18 chapters, but that seems a bit long. So, like I said, I'm in the process of
You got a lot to say.
Yeah, but at the same time, it wasn't the greatest formatted because
looks like I froze. Oh, I'm back.
The what?
Well, I'm not hearing the audio. Oh no!
Seriously?
I'm sure you're still there. Let me re-kick myself here.
Okay.
I'll be right back. You stay right there.
Okay, good.
We are.
All right, yeah. All right, the audio is correct on YouTube at least too. Okay.
I'm not hearing the audio. Oh no.
Seriously? Yeah, that is definitely on your end, dude. All right, so until Jack returns, I guess I'll just resume, hopefully, and that would be good. Actually, let me do one more little sharing here. You good?
Okay.
Okay.
You hear me now?
Yeah. There was not. YouTube was correct, so I had it on your end.
It was on my end, as I said, but you probably didn't hear it.
Nope.
I said, "Oh, you froze. Oh, I froze. Oh, and now my audio is not working. I'll be right back."
Ah.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, that's what I said. All right. Can you still see me?
Yep. Yep. Good. I can see you and hear you, so that's good. And
Good. All right.
again, for anyone who's looking at my background, excuse the mess. I'm in the process of like trying to find a part of a project and also reorganizing. So everything is kind of everywhere as I search for this thing. I'm like, where the crap did I put it? Found it. But now I got to figure out how to put it together.
It's okay. They're here listening legal. There's no one there. They who well, they're here to listen to legalism. They don't care about the stay of your room.
Office, but whatever. All right.
If they care about stay of your room, I say cleanliness is next to godliness. They might be a legalist.
True story. You need to clean your bedroom up before you come to Jesus. Really, dude?
I know, right? They might be illegal. That's first example of legalism right there. Right there. All right.
Now, what was the one thing that you wanted to I'll jump in into it so we can focus on the couple aspects that you wanted to discuss.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just three more little things. You see right here? See? Right there. All right?
A little bit.
That's right. No, yeah. So, the first thing I wanted to touch upon, and again, this is stuff that we ran out of time to say last time. So, continuation from previous. As heard previously on Revealing the Darkness. Joshua was speaking of, he was speaking about how sometimes, if a pastor is a legalist, how they can scare people away from God or make them give up on seeking God, a relationship with God. And I was going to say, oh yes, that reminds me of something that at the Messianic synagogue that I was at, that the younger of the two rabbis there had said in his little message that day. And I was really, really impressed by what he said, because he used two things in this example that actually, well, three things that I just did not expect from him. So, some Messianic groups are, in fact, most of them are Protestant based. They are Protestant and non-denominational and evangelical Christian groups that decide to come Torah observant. And this particular one, Hava B'Shem Yeshua, is that. And so usually a lot of Messianic groups, not all of them, but a lot of them are very anti-Catholic and thusly also anti-Eastern Orthodox and whatnot. And Joshua, I'm telling the story right here. What are you doing on your phone?
The focus is on you. They can't see me.
They can't see you, but I can see you.
And I'm listening. So I'm letting you do your stuff. Now I gotta cut this thing out. I'm just kidding.
Well,
I'm ordering food because I got the game after this. So let me do this now before I forget.
Oh, I see. Well, it's distracting me. I can't tell a story while you're typing, sir. So
I'm typing away. Continue.
for those who can't see, just in case he somehow switched it to just me.
I did.
Wish I could have done the same and just switched it to me. You could have turned off the camera.
Well, like whenever I have it so that whenever I'm talking, it'll automatically switch to me, and then whenever
Okay.
you're talking, it'll automatically switch to you.
Sorry. So I'm easily distracted.
Clearly.
No, it's true. It's true. It's true. And now we're wasting time. So as I was saying, so so I wasn't expecting this guy to give this really great little story, and with the elements that it did, because I didn't expect him to, as a norm, be telling a story that's saying great about a goth, and B, I didn't expect him to tell a story that took place in Eastern Orthodox Church, and C, the story that I'm about to tell you also has a Marian apparition, the Virgin Mary appearing to someone. Again, didn't really expect that from a guy who recently left the Protestant church and who is not pro-Catholic, but it was a great message. So here's what he said. It was a really perfect example of how being legalistic, you can turn people away from God. And that is so. He started off the story by saying he doesn't know if it's true or not. He heard it. He thinks it might be true, but he doesn't know. And it is that in Russia, they're in a Greek Orthodox or Russian Orthodox really church. There was, you're playing with your beard. It's so distracting me. I don't know why I'm so wound up today.
Yeah, really.
I could go through a tab. Yeah, I can see it now. Anyway, so there was this girl who entered into a Orthodox church, and she was dressed all in black with dark makeup and stuff like that. And the Orthodox priest came up to her and said, "Get out of here." She was there, she was praying, and he said, "Get out of here. You're dressed inappropriately." And he scared her off, and the girl ran away crying. And then, at that very moment, an apparition of the Virgin Mary appeared before the priest, saying, and she said to him, "I have spent years working on this girl's heart, trying to bring her to my son, Jesus Christ, and you have ruined all my effort." And the priest fell down to the ground, weeping and crying. And that's where he ended the story of that example. And when I told the story to Josh the other day, he said, "So did the priest go out and find the girl and invite her back in?" Well, I hope. I hope, if it's a true story, I hope he did. But the point that that Rabbi Matthew was trying to get to in telling the story is he was talking about how oftentimes people who claim to be Christians, who claim to be followers of Yeshua, followers of Christ, how we, especially in the United States, but around the world, we're called to lead with love. And however, sadly, we oftentimes become anti-Christ, and we lead with this prejudice, with this hatred, with this judging, with this repelling and sending people away, telling them that they're not good enough for Christ, that they're not good enough for God. No, we are called to love and bring them in to Christ, to lead them to God. How can we lead them to God if we are constantly shoving them away and telling them that they're not good enough?
Exactly.
And that was his point in telling this absolutely beautiful, unexpected story, about a goth girl going into an Eastern Orthodox church, the priest scaring her away, and the Virgin Mary coming and saying to the priest, "You've just ruined 10 years of work that I've done to bring this daughter of God back to my son, Jesus Christ." That was a beautiful story. And as a Hebrew Catholic, as someone who does believe in Marian apparitions. And as a Goth, to hear this story, it warmed my heart. It was so beautiful and something that us as Goths, we can all relate to. And that really leads into the rest of what I want this video to be about.
Mm-hmm.
And that is that, so I, a Goth, raised a Gothic family, and who was a freshman whenever the Columbine shooting happened, And even leading up to that, the Satanic Panic was huge. The Satanic Panic started in the 1970s roundabout. And, you had all these right-wing evangelical conservative, quote unquote, Christians who, they were scared of heavy metal music, and they were scared of people who play Dungeons and Dragons. There's no one in this chat who listens to heavy metal and plays Dungeons and Dragons, is there? Now, it's not me.
No,
I'll just let you know.
No,
I don't listen to metal. I listen to God. But
I'm not
Joshua.
raising my hand at all. Nope, not at all.
Yeah.
I'm not raising my hand at
So,
all. You saw nothing.
Rock music, heavy metal music, Dungeons and Dragons. These right-wing conservative Christians in the United States and to an extent around the whole world were saying that these people were actually Satanists who were trying to turn their children into Satanists, and that they were using Dungeons and Dragons to make their children Satanists and witches and stuff like that. And it is a horrible panic, and they were making up stories about how people under hypnotic thing, how repressed memories were revealed, that they were abused by the cult and by Satanists, and all these made up crazy, stupid stories. And these stories run rampant. I hear them all the time. I even hear them amongst some Christian Goths, and I can't believe that they're believing these stories. These stories have long time been proven to be absolutely false, and it breaks my heart to hear them even repeated amongst our own, whenever our own should know better, should know that the Satanic Panic was complete lies, And the Satanic Panic, which started then, it really, although it was really massive in the late 70s, it again started to reach another crescendo, another peak, and that culminated in the aftermath of the Columbine shooting. So leading up to that, though, in 1997 and 1998, in those years, the shock rock, not goth, but shock rock musician Marilyn Manson started to become very, very popular at that time. And, there was other new metal artists like Korn, Disturbed, Slipknot, that were just starting to also become very, very popular. And again, these parents panicking, oh no, this music, but people dressed weird, wearing makeup, they're going to turn our children into Satanists, right? And so because of that, all of the right-wing evangelical Christian and Baptist and all sorts of Christian, quote-unquote Christian, I'd call them Antichrist churches, started to give sermons every week. We've got to protect our children from these Satanists. We got to burn their music, and we got to burn their clothing, and we got to forcibly cut their hair, and, all these things, just these very prejudice against goths and metalheads and punk and other dark cultures. And it'd been really extreme like that for a long time. Back in June, on June 3rd, 1993, the West Memphis Three were arrested under horrible charges of having mutilated and murdered three little boys. Three little boys were mutilated and murdered, but the West Memphis Three did not do it. And the only reason that they were charged with stuff is because Damien Eccles, a member of the Western Street, he was into Metallica, and he dressed black, and he was, sort of part of a dark subculture. He's sort of a goth slash metalhead. Goth and metal is not the same, but he is, well, gothic and metal kind of is gothic metal. Damien Eccles was and still is that way. And he had a friend who was a nerd, just a nerd, a standard nerd, named Jason Baldwin. And then there was another child. They were young, they were teenagers. Another child they went to school with named Jesse Miskelly, who had autism. And the police decided to arrest Jesse Miskelly, and they interrogate him for like 24 hours and wouldn't let him eat or anything like that, and until he just listed two weirdos that he went to school with, Jason Baldwin and Damien Eccles, as having murdered and mutilated these three little boys that had recently been found mutilated in town. And all three were sentenced. Well, Jason and Jesse were sentenced to life in prison, and Damien Eccles was sentenced to the death penalty for a crime that none of the three did. It was horrible, and it was all because the town wanted Damien Eccles to be behind bars / in the death penalty or / killed, because he was a goth, and they goth / metalhead, and they considered him to be an evil demonic Satanist. And that was back in 1993. And then in 1997, by the way, that was in West Memphis, Arkansas. But then in 1997 in Amarillo, Texas, this Norm Jock ran over a punk rocker named Brian DeNike with his car, and made sure to back up and crush Brian DeNike's head. And the jock who did that, the judge in the murder trial, let that jock go off scot-free, like with just like 1 year probation, because the judge actually thanked the jock for getting rid of the punk scum. That's, that just tells you what society was like. And and as I was saying, Marilyn Manson's music was getting real big around 97, and he was on stage and he was tearing out pages from the Bible because he was a shock rocker. That's what shock rockers do. And I don't approve of people ripping pages out of the Bible, but he's a shock rocker, and he's not even a goth. But these parents were saying, oh, he's a goth rocker, and goths are all a bunch of Satanists. And so churches were giving these homilies that they've been giving since the 70s, these sermons since the 70s, saying, you can't let them do these, turn your children to Satanists. You must, any goth you see, you gotta kill them. Or, so you got these hicks who they were going goth hunting. They were lynching goths, and it was just a horrible, horrible time to be a goth or a punk or a metalhead, especially in rural towns. You were going to end up lynched. You were going to end up hung dead from a tree or dragged behind a truck. It was horrible what these churches were doing. And goths, a large majority of goths are Christian. Then there's a large amount of goths that are also non-religious, just secular, and some goths that are Jewish. Goth has nothing to do with religion, and it has nothing to do with Satanism or anything like that. It's just a subculture of people. It's a group of people, and there are goths of all religion and no religion. Yet because mainstream Christian America and Parsons world so wrongfully associate us with Satanism, we were persecuted, and that them wrongfully associating us with that, that is a form of legalism, as we've already covered. You know, it is them looking at these people with the eyes of man instead of with the eyes of God. It's judging them without knowing them. And it's judging, oh, you look different than me. You must be a Satanist. Well, you know, that can go to, for instance, being a deeply devout follower of God at that time, as I was and am, right? And seeing these people in hate, just slaughtering, you know, others of my own culture. Well, I knew that a lot of these people of my culture, which were being persecuted, were deeply devout Christians. Then these people who are slaughtering us, they must be Antichrist, as I call them, right? It's very clear. It's, you know, they're of hatred attacking us. They're claiming to follow Christ. And then they're claiming to kill us as a favor to Christ, which Christ warns about in Scripture. Yeah. He says there will come a day when they will throw you out of the synagogues or throw you out of the religious meeting places, and a day where they will persecute you and they will kill you, and they will think that they're doing God a favor or a service to God, depending on your translation. So you got to realize, me in 1997, 1998, and very much 1999, reading that scripture, oh, Christ is talking to me. I see it very clear, right? Because if I, at that time, tried to go to a church, as I actually did a few times, trying to go to a church, I would be instantly kicked out, instantly banned, right? I had some neighbors. They invited me to come and join them at Calvary Chapel there in Prescott, Arizona. Okay? I went to Calvary Chapel. And, oh, you're dressed in black. You have long hair. You wear black fingernail polish. You're a goth. Oh, you're evil. You're going to go to hell. Get away from us, you know, right? So I was, you know, kicked out of religious meeting places, you know, right?
It's funny how they're doing the exact opposite of what they are actually supposed to do, assuming, like going off their assumptions of, oh, you must be a Satanist. Let's invite you in and bring you to Christ versus kicking you out and saying you don't belong here.
Exactly. Instead of sharing the gospel, they were saying, no, the gospel's not for you, right? Which is gets us right in to how I started this video, and that is with the story that, you know, I heard 3 weeks ago about the goth girl entering, you know, into the Orthodox Church and the Orthodox priest scaring her away, right? I was and still am really a deeply devout religious goth who wanted to follow God, and because I was raised fully secular, but I was deeply devout and religious because my parents did not go to church and did not want to go to church. I wanted to go to church. So someone invites me to church, a friend invites me to church. I, who want to go to church and want to have a relationship with Jesus, want to have a relationship with God, I go to church, and the church kicked me out because I look different than them. That's the exact story that was told with the goth girl and that priest that kicked her out, right? Same story. It happened to me. So even though whenever Rabbi Matthew told me told everyone that story, he said he didn't know if that story was true or not. Well, you know what? Here, I got a different story for him that I know for a fact is true. that goth girl in the story is me. I'm not a girl, but you know, it's me. And it's not an Orthodox church. Is a Protestant Christian non-denominational church. You know, Calvary Chapel. Now, I would like to preface here. I've been to Calvary Chapel, Prescott, a few times in my life. Each time, it was not a good experience. I don't necessarily recommend them, but as I've said before in the previous videos, I was feeding the homeless, and Calvary Chapel Chino Valley came out, and they helped us feed the homeless. And Pastor Paul of Calvary Chapel Chino Valley, great guy, wonderful guy. Every member of Calvary Chapel Chino Valley, great people. I love them. And so I'm not trying to badmouth Calvary Chapel in general. I've had some bad experiences with Calvary Chapel Prescott. I've had some wonderful experiences with Calvary Chapel Chino Valley. And you know what? I can't speak for every member of Calvary Chapel Prescott, nor their current leadership. So don't think that I'm bad mouthing them. I'm not trying to. Okay, but you know what? All that stuff that was 1996, 1997, right?
Wow.
It's now 2023.
It's all
Okay,
crazy,
so
isn't
that example, very old. Okay, I'm not. Don't take that as me bad mouthing anything current about that place. The point of that is the satanic panic at that time
Mm-hmm.
was very bad, right? And by the way, that's how much escape was like 96 or 97. Okay. Then a few years later, in in 1999, April 20th, 1999, the Columbine shooting happened.
Yeah.
And then that's when the satanic panic in the United States hit a boiling point and boiled over. And that is whenever the news show 2020 released a horrible propaganda episode against goths, depicting us as a murderous trenchcoat mafia that would rape and mutilate and kill anyone who is a follower of God. You know, that's whenever the false story that keeps on going around about the girl who said yes came out. They even made a movie about it. It's a fake story. It never happened. You know, it's the story that one of the girls, a girl who really did die, who was really killed in Columbine. There was a story that the shooters were going around the library shooting children, which they did. And the story that is false is that they asked the girl, "Do you believe in God?" And she said yes, and then they shot her and killed her. It's a story that it's fake, and it was created by Protestant Christian propagandists. And no, there's no record of that girl actually saying yes. She was a deeply devout Christian. God rest her soul. You know, it's sad that she died, but there's actually no real recollection of them asking her that question or of her saying yes. Okay, it's a fake story, just for those who don't know. But you know, the story is that's told is that the Columbine shooters were goths, which they were not, and that they were Satanists, which there's no evidence of them being Satanists either, actually. And that they went around asked us, "Do you believe in God?" And when they said yes, they'd shoot them in the head. That's the story. That story that is not true. You know. So, but they did go around and shoot children in the head and kill them in a library. That's sad. It's very sad. Okay. But you see how the satanic panic propaganda was creating these stories to demonize the other, demonize people who were not like the norms, right? You know, you see it does. So you can imagine if that was the story that had just gone out at that time and the media was a frenzy on it. And can you imagine the panic in the mainstream norm churches at that time and what they were saying from the pulpit, right? And so you imagine a little hit country western town like Chino Valley, Arizona, it's very, very bad for people like me, you know, right?
Yeah.
Horrible. We were literally being lynched. It was like being a black person in the South in the 1950s and 60s. It was like that. It was a very similar experience. I have friends who were killed by norms. I have friends who were horribly mistreated. I have female friends who were raped by norm men as punishment for them being goths. And then my friends who are horribly persecuted and or who were raped, you can imagine that to the ones who were not killed, that they sometimes to deal with the horrible trauma of that, they either committed suicide or else they self-medicate with drugs and alcohol and died of overdoses, and it's horrible. And then they would lie and say all Goths are depressed. Well, if you're beating us and raping us and trying to kill us and throwing us out of churches, yeah, we're going to be depressed. Right? So,
and also it kind of says if you're doing all this stuff, why would we want to convert to your
that's right.
belief system if this is the supposed love of your
Christians?
Father? Yeah.
That's right. And then they wonder why so many Goths at that time converted to Wicca or paganism or altruism. That's another form of paganism. Or again. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You're going digital for a split second
there. Yeah, or else why some Goths might at that time convert to Satanism, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if that's how if that's the love of Christ, if that's you spreading the gospel, goodbye, right?
Yeah. Which kind of merges into. Go ahead. Sorry, I thought you were finished.
No, you go ahead.
Okay.
You go ahead.
Which kind of merges into one of the points I made in the book near the end. Is it's a theory of mine, whether or not it's true, but it kind of makes sense knowing what just what we're talking about here. The theory of, I want to say it's Aleister Crowley and Madame Blavatsky. Both were, I think both of them. I could be wrong on Blavatsky, but I know that Aleister Crowley was born into a very, very strict religious family, and he basically rebelled because of the religiousness of it. And we all know the route that he went. But I have a theory that many of the what we would consider the evil or bad people of like the dark occult side that were originally born into Christianity, or at least they were born in Christian homes but never went that route. It's literally because of the religious spirit was so strict, and they were born to show the world or show Christendom a better way. But because of how bad and strict things were, they said, screw it all, I'm doing my own thing. And thus we have this. And so I have a theory that a lot of the more well-known Satanist, occultists, everything on the really dark side, the bad side of things. I have a theory that the church basically caused it because of the spirit of, and how bad we treat outsiders that we deem unnecessary, or what's that word I'm looking for? Or not good enough. When we know,
or even how bad, or even how bad we treat our own children.
Yeah.
For instance, something that's a topic that I hear a lot from a lot here in town in Prescott, I'll say, from Norms. So Prescott, for those who don't know, is a senior citizen community. Okay. And so the average age here is like 75, 75 to 90, right? And so something that I hear a lot of them talk about is how their children or their grandchildren, how, they tried to raise them towards God, but they've gone away from God, right? Well, both 2 weeks ago and this week, Rabbi Matthew, and this is part of the story that I was telling you that I told. It was part of his message on one of the reasons that maybe these people's children and their grandchildren and others are falling away is because instead of showing them and sharing with them the love of God, instead they are wrongfully depicting God to their children and to other people as a punishing figure who is full of hate and full of demands, and who, if you're not exactly perfect, you're going to burn forever in torment, right?
Exactly.
And if you're showing God in that way, if you're mischaracterizing God in that way by being overly harsh on your children, for instance, and
Mhm.
not showing your children the love of God, then you can scare them away from God. Right?
Exactly.
For instance, that one family that invited me to Calvary Chapel back around 96 or 97, they had, well, three children, but two children that I'm going to focus on. But I'm still friends with these people. Great people, the two children. So these two children, they were raised super deeply devout children. As in, they weren't allowed to watch Disney or Star Wars because they were of the devil. Okay? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. You know what I mean, right?
yeah,
So
because I've
these
seen that
children are
before.
neighbors, right?
Yeah.
These children are neighbors, right?
I've seen that before. There are
Yeah.
some
Can I
aspects
finish this one?
that I also shared, just maybe not quite to that extreme. But continue.
So yeah. So anyway, so these children, they were raised in a really strictly religious family, right? So both of these children, whenever they became teenagers, boy, did they rebel against their parents
Mhm.
hard, real hard. Okay. Both of these, and I'll use their names because I'm not bad on them at all. They're good friends. Ryan and Laurie, wonderful friends of mine. I love them. Wonderful. So Laurie, I don't know what her religious beliefs are. Okay, so I can't say that. But Ryan, I do know his, and he is Norse paganism. That is his belief. That's been his belief ever since he was a teenager. All right. He's covered in tattoos all over his body. He smokes. He drinks. He's done drugs in the past. He's not a bad guy. I'm not saying things. I'm not saying those as bad qualities about him. I'm just telling you, right? He's a good guy. He's a great guy. I love him. All right. I hope he's does less drugs now. There was a while where I was really concerned about him. I was real worried about his path in life there. But I think he's doing good now. I think he's doing mostly good. Yeah, and he's a great guy. I love Ryan. Right? I love Ryan. I love Laurie. And you know what? Ever since that happened with their children, the parents, for a while they were, real but you know what? They chilled out. Their parents, real cool people now too. I gotta say it. Gotta say it. Real cool family. Not saying a single bad thing about them. Love the whole family. Okay.
Mhm.
But yeah, so you can see that whenever you just teach your children, God wants this and this and this restrictive thing about you. You can't have fun. That's really not showing God in the proper light, right?
Exactly.
Yes, God has his way that he would like us to live. God has his gentle and loving instruction about what is beneficial and helpful and what is not.
Yes.
Absolutely. God does have those aspects, but God also gave us free will. We have free will to listen to his loving advice or not. And you know what? He always loves us. He's always welcoming us back. And he's not pressuring us to choose. It's our choice. We suffer the consequences of it. It's our choice. And that's what it is. Paul, in one of his letters, says we're not to judge outsiders. He says that's between them and God. God is their judge. We are not the judge. I am not anyone's judge. God is the judge, not me. Right? My job is to love everyone, love my fellow man, and then my job also for me to become a saint, for me to follow God to the best of my ability, and for me to help others do the same.
Yes.
And for me, it's spread that not just in word, but in my actions, and through my actions to help inspire others to also follow God to the best of their ability. And that's it, and that's a message of love. Christ teaches a message of love. And the issue with legalism is it takes that message of love and it, because of the devil, takes it and twists it, right? And turns it into a message of accusation of hate and of strict, a strict and burning one with with things. Just it becomes a burden. Whereas God himself says, not in the New Testament, he says in the New Testament too, but in Deuteronomy, in the Torah itself, in the laws and commandments itself, God says that the laws and commandments and instructions, that yoke is light and joysome. Okay? That's in Deuteronomy. All right? And so God's commands are light, joysome, easy, and they're already on our tongue and on our lips and on our heart. Okay? That's what it says in the Old Testament. So God's instructions, his loving teachings, are not hard. They're not burdensome. They're not impossible. They're very, very easy. They if you just, and it says this both in the Old Testament, in the Torah, and in the New Testament. It says, if you just love God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your might, and love yourself and love your neighbor, love your fellow man as yourself, that then you're going to fulfill all the commandments just by that. Okay? It's that easy. All right? It's not hard. And being legalistic, being judgmental, being hateful of someone who doesn't look like you, and saying, oh, you have, unless you look and act and think and dress and listen to things exactly as me, you're not following God. Exactly. That mindset, that, as Josh would call it, religious mindset, or as I'd call it, that antichrist mindset, that legalistic mindset, is that of the devil. And it's harmful, and it's hurtful, and it destroys lives, and it pushes people away from Christ. Think about all the Goths who, in the lead up to Columbine and the aftermath, the horrible aftermath of Columbine, how many were turned away from God, right? If someone wants to know why did Ryan and possibly Larry, definitely Ryan, why did they leave Christianity? You know why? Because they saw their parents and their church treat me like shit. Ryan and Larry knew how much I loved God, how much I love God. And they knew how much I wanted to go to church. And they saw how much their mother and their father, who have since repented, they're cool now, but how much their mother and their father and their church cast me out. And that and they saw how strict their mother and father were on them, right? And it destroyed their faith too, right? So hatred just repels people away from God. Legalism just repels people away from God. So let's go forward in love. And that's something that I was always teaching, as I saw my friends fall away into atheism and Satanism and Wicca and paganism, because of how horribly they were being treated by supposed Christians. I was there as a light of God, led by the angel that came to me. I've spoken about it a few times in the past publicly. I was there saying, my fellow Goths, I know how badly you are being treated, but look what it says right here in the gospel. Christ says that his followers shall be kicked out of churches. He says that the people who claim to follow God will kill his followers and persecute them and think they're doing God a favor. So guess what? You know what that makes us? That makes us the true followers of God. And you know what that makes them? That makes them antichrist. So don't worry about them. Don't worry about being persecuted, because you know what Christ said? He told us the reason he was telling us in the gospel was he said so we would not get dismayed and fall away from the faith. He said he told us this so that we would know that he was telling us the truth, and that the religion was true, and that he's the Messiah, and for us to know the sign that we are actual followers of him is people treating us like that. So you know what? Let them treat us like that, because that just proves more that we are the true followers of God. And let's continue to follow God as Goths who follow God. And that is what I've always taught. That's what I taught in 97, 98, definitely in 1999, and all the years since then. And that is what I still teach here. And so that's a huge part of my message and my ministry. And that's what I teach. So now that I've gone like that and we only have 9 minutes left, Joshua, do you have any instances or stories from your own life?
It's more of a closing, because I think we've kind of touched on a lot of different things. I haven't dealt with nearly as much as you have, minus the one quick story that I shared, I think the first day of whenever, God, almost 10 years ago, whenever I went to that church, the pastor was giving information and details of, I think it was like eschatology or something like that, and I told him, was like, good job on this, all during the time whenever he was saying, I think someone is wanting to come out of the occult. I was wearing all my Gothic stuff. Other than that one, nah. But I do have some, I guess, some final things as we close out. Given everything we've discussed the last couple few weeks here, I think the one thing that we really need to watch out for when it comes to the spirit, whether it's inside or outside of a church, and this also kind of depends on whether or not you even know what the Father's love really is and how it looks like. But the one strong actually, there's two strong aspects of it, is that, it's a false love. I've had times where someone at a church said that they love me, but I just knew. Yeah, I knew it was that, it was that religious love that they really didn't. But at the same time, since I lived that thing for 25 years, I've been on the sending end of that too. And it's one of those things where you just got to learn and grow out of it. Yeah. And sometimes many times it's not an overnight thing. You got to grow in love as you do it. So you gotta watch out for that false love. And many times too, we have to watch out for what I call the false Holy Spirit. Whenever we're seeking after something and we think, oh, I think the Lord is wanting me to go this route, and we check with other people that are in our group, whatever, it's like, no, I don't think it is. I don't think that's where the Lord wants you to go. Or it could even be where you feel like this, but because of something like a false belief or false doctrine that you've been taught, it's like, no, God will make me do this. I'm not going to do that. Obviously, that's the false Holy Spirit. Whenever we feel one thing, and we feel, nah, that's not the right. That's not God. God wouldn't want to do that, or wouldn't want me to do that. So, and then lastly, and this is the most important, Fraulein, get out of the way.
That's the most important.
The most important thing right here is your identity. Who are you? Do you know your identity in Christ? That right there is the most important, because you can go through hell on earth because all these different belief systems and all these different churches rejecting you because you don't match up to how they see a Christ believer, a Christian, a God believer, whatever you want to call yourself, should look like or believe. But do you know who you are? Do you know your identity? Because if you have a very strong foundation and you know who you are, who your identity is, and you can flow and function in that, you don't have to worry. Don't have to worry about it, because all that stuff that's going to come against you, it won't. And you're grounded in that, and you have a solid foundation in that. Everything that's thrown at you, yeah, it's going to hurt, but it's not going to waver you, because your identity is built on the rock, just like Jesus said, to build your house or your life, your belief system, your identity on a rock versus on the sand, a beach, because this kind of goes along with the fire that we go through in this life. Whenever God sends the fire, which many times it's a trying process. Okay, let's put this thing through the test. If you go through a test, and we all do, whenever you go through the test, is your belief system, is your house still standing? Yeah, it might have taken some damage, but is it still standing? That right there is what really matters. And we will always go through tests. Life is nothing more than just a bunch of tests and trials to continue to purify us. And that's what metal workers and alchemists all do. They put stuff through the fire to remove the impurities, and that's what this life is. So if you know who your identity is and you're solid in Christ, you'll go through the fires. But as long as you're confident and you walk in that, you're good, and you don't really have to worry about anything. But at the same time, just gotta continue to hold on to Christ as much as you can. And what that is, that's not legalism. That is not this religious spirit. That is what we've been talking about probably for the past 2 or 3 years without even really calling it out, except for probably a few times. That's having that relationship. That's how you know and how you develop your identity, is having that relationship with God, period. But I hope everyone did enjoy the last few weeks of this. If y'all have any questions, you can reach out to me. You can reach out to Jack. It doesn't really matter, because even though we might use slightly different language, we both agreed based on how we explained it to each other that we're basically talking about the same thing. Even though we call it something a little bit different, it's essentially the same thing. And so we are here for y'all to talk. If y'all need questions asked, if y'all need to just have a heart-to-heart to figure this stuff out that you're going through, we're here for you. So just reach out to me or Jack. In case y'all are wondering too, let me rename, because I always have this as, yes, this is my Zoom here, but that way you can see it. Name is Josh. So, or you can just go and look at the group admin stuff, and it shows me and Jack as the admin. So again, we're here for y'all. We have different group chats set up for whether you're a guy or a girl. So reach out to us. And Jack, do you have anything else that you want to add before we close out?
Yes. So all those horror stories I told about the sad things that happened to our people during the Satanic Panic. Of course, after the Columbine shooting, those continued to happen, and they reached another crescendo in 2007, whenever Sophie Lancaster and her boyfriend Robert Mulkey were attacked at a park in Britain and horribly beaten and ended up in comas, and Sophie Lancaster died 14 days later. But after that, due to the wonderful work of Sophie's mother, who recently also died, I think she died of cancer, but due to the work of that, attacks against goths and punks and other subcultures like that was declared to be a hate crime in Britain. And now, if someone attacks and kills a goth or a punk or a metalhead in Britain simply because they're a goth or a punk or a metalhead, that person will be prosecuted extra hard. And so things have gone much better since then. The world has sort of moved on. But, just remember those Gothic martyrs like Sophie Lancaster and like Brandon Ike, and the still living ones like the West Memphis Three, who thankfully, after 20 years in prison, all three of them were released and are alive. Thank God for the beauty of these people's souls, and let's try and make the world a better place, a world that's not built on hate, but a world that is built on the love of God.
Great.
Amen.
All right. Well, again, I hope everyone enjoyed this. If y'all have any questions or need to chat with me or Jack, reach out.